Welcome to Save As Ability, a podcast to educate and inform you about disability employment issues. My name is David D'Arcangelo, and I'm your disability policy expert. Hey everybody, welcome back for another episode of Save As Ability. It's David D'Arcangelo, and today we're talking about really something that I think is innovative that I've come up with, okay? Now, this may be a little bit of a two-part episode, and really what we're talking about here is big picture stuff, okay? We're talking about like market mechanics, okay? And how people with disabilities impact that or don't impact that, all right? So let's get right into it. We're talking about market mechanics here. We're not talking about charity. We're not talking about big federal government programs or bureaucracies. And, you know, we're talking a little bit more about like capital allocation, okay? Why? Well, because we know, and we've been over this in episodes, all right? Let's go over the data just to level set here. Roughly 1 in 8 working age Americans are a person with a disability. Roughly 1 in 4 lives at or below the federal poverty level. There's a 40% gap, 40-point employment gap between Americans with and without disabilities, all right? And an important thing to recognize here in my premise and what I'm going to propose is I believe that this gap suppresses income, participation, and really it's keeping talent on the sidelines and, you know, all of this data that we've just gone about laying out the case here, okay? Why we need this change, okay? Because what we're doing and what we've been doing just hasn't worked. 2/3 of all working age people with disabilities not in the labor force is not good for those individuals. It's not good for the business community that could use them. It's not good for the country. It's not good for Americans. It's not good for those families, all right? I think everybody can agree that. We've got the data to back it up, all right? So this income suppression, really what it does is on a macroeconomic view, again, we're talking about markets here. What does it do? Well, it shapes businesses that then shape industries, that then shape sectors, that then shape the markets, that then shape the larger economy. All right. And so this all works together. All right. Now, one of the things here that my plan is kind of using is what many labor market economists refer to as 200% of federal poverty level. Okay. Well, what is that? Let's just define that briefly. The federal poverty level for a single adult is roughly $15,000 per year. Right. So 200% of that is roughly $30,000 a year. Now it's more if there's families and, you know, married and things like that. For this exercise, that's what we're using though, all right? And economists use this 200% of federal poverty level as a threshold for financial vulnerability. The point below that is where economic participation becomes constrained. And why? It's pretty obvious because, you know, if you're bringing in $30,000 a year, there's not a lot of disposable income there to be starting businesses and buying big purchase items and all those types of things, all right? So a substantial share of working age adults with disabilities are falling at or below this line, okay? So yeah, there's the aggregate, you know, big data that we were talking about in terms of numbers of individuals, but then it's backed up by this economic data as well. And you know, so what does this mean? Well, that means that there's among this group of working age Americans with disabilities, lower spending power, lower access to capital, delayed purchases, limited investment and things like that. And, you know, the ability to start a business and, you know, do all the stuff that people want to have in the American dream. Okay. And markets end up responding to this purchasing power or lack of purchasing power. They view it as like this unmet need. So as we've had in recent episodes with Chris Marr and Artie, there are people and entities trying to solve this and trying to say, well, wait a minute, how can we get the private sector involved? Because again, we're not bashing anybody here, but the federal government programs have locked people in place and that hasn't worked. The data is clear. And clearly the private markets haven't been able to solve this, or they haven't been incentivized to get these individuals into the labor force and then working and participating and, you know, business and all that stuff. All right. So part of what I'm positing here is when income is suppressed, demand appears smaller than it actually is, and the less attention is paid to these people with disabilities who we know and love, who I'm a person with a disability right here. Okay, so that's what we're trying to do. Now, that kind of sets the stage here. All right, so what about this, Dave? Well, I really believe that we need to introduce competition here. I really believe that we need to bring these private sector entities in on this and incentivize it in a way. Now, many have said, well, that means more government intervention. No, we've tried that. It has not worked. Matter of fact, maybe, I wouldn't say the opposite, but maybe even less in some areas of government spending would be better. And maybe in some areas it could be more. But overall, I'm not proposing a raise in government spending, and particularly federal government spending on this. Okay. Why? Because it hasn't worked. All right. So stick with me. What I'm talking about is bringing income stability, because living off of $30,000 a year is not income stability. I'm talking about increasing labor participation rates, not by 1 or 2 or 5%. I'm talking by like 40%. And that will give people the disposable income. And America will see a boom. America will see growth that we've never seen before. And people with disabilities can be leading the way on this. Now, I know you say, Dave, what are you talking about? I'm telling you, I have the way to do it. Now, this is going to be a 2-part episode. We're going to get to some of the nuts and bolts in episode 2. But right now, let's stay at a high level. I would propose that these markets have traditionally reacted to these weak signals, if you will. Not my term, their term. These weak signals of, well, wait a minute. Yeah, you get this large group, but there's no money there and they're not working. And all right, so venture capital isn't attracted to that. They don't fund need. They're in the business to make money. I think I can propose and figured out a way that they can do this. Okay, funds through scalable purchasing power. If income is compressed, the volatility is high. Ergo, if we can unlock that, then the risk profile and the volatility becomes low. All right. So we will loosen risk models. We will expand capital markets, and we will do this with innovation. Innovation in 2 different ways. One, it's going to be this economic innovation that we're going to bring. Okay. And traditionally, like many of the federal dollars have been denoted in the manner with which the programs and regulations have been put together, that money needs to stay in government systems and in charity systems. It hasn't worked. So part of what I'm proposing is, let's give capital markets an opportunity to get at those dollars and give them a chance to get better results, which I think they will. All right. So what's the dilemma? The current dilemma is that the current systems are not working. They're not producing the labor integration. If capital markets are not allocating efficiently and, they're not paying attention, that's the dilemma there. So the government hasn't worked. The capital markets are like kind of on the sidelines here. So what we're looking at is structural underutilization. And my plan deals directly with that. No more idle labor capacity, no more underdeveloped markets, no more, mispriced risk or all these things that venture capital and all private markets look at. No, this is going to be an economic opportunity that's going to benefit individuals with disabilities. Okay, that's macroeconomic thing. Now, let me now tease out the better deal, and we're going to deal with most of the better deal in episode 2. But basically, my proposal is not bigger bureaucracy, not permanent subsidies. Matter of fact, we're going to prompt fade those over time. Okay? I'm talking about structural risk correction to the markets and bringing people in. So the better deal means using the stability and full faith and credit of the federal government to de-risk labor participation and capital formation. Not replace markets, not subsidize markets,
but stabilize markets for people with disabilities who have a rational basis with which to do so. This is not some DEI thing that didn't work, that failed. This is better. This is innovation for our whole economy. People with disabilities can lead the way to an economy that can be bigger than ever. If we can be the biggest that we've ever been, and not just for Wall Street and people that own stocks and bonds. I'm talking about Main Street. I'm talking about small business. When risk is reduced, private capital comes off the sidelines. When labor participation rises, our economy rises and income explodes. When that happens, purchasing power for all Americans expands. The value of the dollar improves. Returns will follow. Growth will become rampant. Stay tuned for episode 2 here as I get into my plan, okay, and lay this out. We can do this. The pieces are in place now. We just got to reallocate this. And we have the leadership now that has the intestinal fortitude to actually do this. We can do this and improve not only the human condition for our Americans with disabilities, but all Americans. That's why this is win, win, win. Okay? All right, it's David D'Angelo. Stay tuned for episode 2 of this. I hope you have a great day.
For more information about disability employment issues, please visit our website, disabilityemploymentsolutions.com. The Save As Ability podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, our YouTube channel at Disability Policy Expert, or wherever you stream your podcasts. Subscribe, stream, rate, and review our shows. Your ratings and reviews help our show reach new audiences. Produced by Pod Pro Entertainment. Save As Ability lives within a network of podcasts located at podproentertainment.com. #TheNewRadio. Again, my name is David D'Angelo, and I'm your disability policy expert. Until next time, thank you. I hope you have a great day.